Hello, all my beautiful, beautiful, wonderful people. Sorry. I'm a bit mellow and calm today. I feel like I have my brain half off, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, obviously, I couldn't say what I wanted to say correctly right now, but when you're very anxious or you overthink, in that situation, it would be good to turn your brain off and just kind of, not be overthinking, not have a bunch of negative thoughts going on in your head. So I'm in the middle. I'm not in an anxious state, but I'm not completely checked out either. I'm just kind of flowing through the day. But that's not what today's video is going to be about. That was just a side note. Today I'm going to be talking about unrealistic expectations when it comes to therapy. Normally, you guys know that I come up with these topics when I'm in the middle of doing something, with watching something, listening to something. This time is no different. I'm a really big proponent of mental health, and it's just something that I am really interested in, that I really care about. So I do often listen to people talk about their mental health journeys, their therapy journeys, their process, and just those types of stories. And I just love hearing people praising therapy and hearing how they started before therapy, hearing how they are either during therapy or if they've already ended formal therapy, hearing that before and after. I just am really fascinated and curious, and I find it very interesting and heartwarming, encouraging, all these positive things. So I was listening to a podcast, and the focus of the podcast wasn't even about therapy. I think it was just kind of like an update, kind of like what I was doing. They just kind of added an update in the beginning part of the podcast, and I heard that, and I started to think there's always a gap from starting therapy to experiencing the benefits of therapy that is almost always omitted when people are discussing their journey. Just in case that didn't make sense, what I'm trying to say is that the time that people start therapy, and fast forwarding to the time when people are actually able to say, I can do this now because of therapy. I know how to do this because of my therapist. I feel like this because of these practices that I learned in therapy. All those kinds of comments that people normally make when they're talking about therapy. There's a timeline, right? And there is a gap in between the start time and when they can start talking about the benefits of therapy. People normally don't talk about this gap. I don't know. They don't talk about it. They skip over it. They don't mention it. And I think that can be just incredibly discouraging and can turn people away from therapy. It can be discouraging because people will try therapy if, they hear these wonderful things that therapy did for someone that is in their life, someone that they care about or look up to. They're more likely to try therapy. But if they try therapy and they don't have that immediate or almost immediate spike in positive feeling and attitude and clear progression from how they were when they start, I think that it can be very difficult for people to say this is worth it, that therapy is worth it. And I would compare it to exercising, weight loss, working out. I know personally, if I don't see results right away, I'm just like, this sucks. I hate it. This doesn't work. This is not helping me at all. And I get super, super discouraged and upset and frustrated, and I'll give up, which is not good, you know? You gotta keep trying, keep pushing yourself. But I think that it can translate to therapy as well. I just personally feel like mental health is more difficult for people to understand and accept than physical health is, because physical health, normally you can see it. Mental health is something that you can't really see unless there's physical manifestations of it. So I think that when people share their stories and don't share or talk about that gap in between the beginning and experiencing those benefits, I think that is unhelpful and is not completely being truthful about the therapy process. When people hear these very quick and fast but wonderful journeys, it creates an expectation for those people who don't have those same connections or whatever it may be that I have or that you have. Then people might only hear about therapy from people's stories that they post online or wherever else they post, and it can really impact negatively the expectations that they create about what therapy is. That can be harmful, because if they go into it and expect those results, then if they don't get them, they're not going to want to go to therapy, or if they don't get them right away, they're not going to want to go to therapy anymore. They're going to quit. They're going to say that it doesn't work. So I think that when people skip over, don't talk about that in between time, again, it turns people away from therapy. Therapy is a lot of work. And I don't say that to turn you guys away from therapy, but I say that because it's a process. There are things to be done, things to be explored. Again, it's person by person, so I can't tell you exactly how therapy is going to be if you went to therapy, but it's not just some quick, easy fix. They're not going to put a cast on you. They're not going to give you a list of, I don't know, foods that you can or can't eat. It's harder work, and you have to be very patient with yourself, with your mind, with your body. You have to learn how to do things. Some things, like if you sprained your ankle or something, you might have like a brace, and you might have to do some physical therapy, practice using your muscles again, whatever it is that can happen to hurt to your body that hurts you in some way. it's not like that with therapy. You have to learn how to do things for the first time. Most of the time, mental health isn't as widely accepted as physical health. So there are things that you know how to do for your physical well-being because that's just, part of the culture or whatever. But with mental health, some people are learning things in therapy for the first time. Some things you might know and you might just build on, but some things you're learning for the first time. So you have to make sure that you are aware that it is a learning process as well. You're not just healing, you're also growing, you're learning. And when you learn new things, you have to put them into practice. You have to do them over and over again. You have to build that muscle memory. And I think that's also one of the things that I struggle with too is repetition. Like I'll do things when I really need them. Like if I'm having an anxiety attack or something, then I'll like put my tools, my resources into practice. But it's also really, really beneficial to do them when you're not in some type of negative state. You want to build that muscle memory so that it's automatic and you don't have to think about it when you are in an anxious state. Because I think that sometimes people might really struggle with that. It's good to practice these things when you are in that good or at least neutral headspace so that it just is more rapid and automatic when you are in some type of crisis or just negative headspace. I'm horrible talking sometimes. That was like a bit of a tangent again. Now going back. I think that when people talk about their stories, and it's important to share their stories, people's stories, it's important. I just think that they're very good at getting people to at least think about and consider going to therapy. Maybe they don't end up going to therapy, but I think that even getting someone to consider it is a win. I'm not trying to tell people not to talk about their journeys. I just think that it is important to explain the whole process, to inform people of the whole process. That time when they're learning their therapist, when they're starting to trust their therapist, when they're starting to learn about all these things that they didn't know about that are going on in their head, and then learn about all these resources and all these tools that they can use to help them with whatever it is they're struggling with. Because it takes all of that to create a foundation to be able to then work and build on getting to that point when you are experiencing the positive benefits of therapy. I just highly encourage people when they do talk about their therapy experience to make sure that they do include discussion about the process and that time in between, because that time and the effort that they put in during that time also, I mean, they should be proud of themselves for all of that time and effort that went into building the foundation for therapy, because their therapist didn't know them before. They didn't know their therapist. They didn't trust their therapist. There was a lot going on in that in-between time. There was learning and trying things out, trial and error. There's just so much that goes on in that beginning part, and for themselves, they should acknowledge and be proud of that. But also for viewers or people who are taking in their stories, they should also tell that part of the story because it can make it a little bit less scary to know what to expect on the first session, on the first few sessions, and it can give them an idea of, what goes into therapy. When you start therapy, you're learning about therapy too. You're learning about what this process is going to be like with this therapist, with what they know about you so far. And every person's different. Everything is tailored to the person. So just like I can't tell you how your therapy experience is going to be, they won't even be able to tell you how your therapy experience is going to be exactly until they know at least more about you. And again, it can evolve and change as the months or the years go by that you're in therapy. And while this does not have to do with that beginning part, that gap in the beginning part, what I do also want to talk about, just to end this video off, is that therapy isn't always about moving forward. And I think that is an expectation that is had by a lot of people as well. There are lulls. There are times when you might be at a standstill, where you might regress a little bit. It's not always moving forward. Healing isn't linear. There's dips and curves, hills. It's not perfect. It's not just, I'm going to therapy and by this time next year, I will be all the way up here. I'll be perfect. I'll be so much better. I'll just go straight up. That's not how it always is. And again, not to discourage you by saying that, but I'm saying that to inform you so that you know, so that when that happens, you're not discouraged, so that you know that it's part of the process, so that you stick with it. Because even if you are at a standstill, or even if you do go backwards, that doesn't mean that's how it's just going to be. You can still continue forward. You can still continue healing. You can still continue growing. It's not a bad reflection on you. You're not horrible at therapy. It's just something that can happen. Life can happen. The way that you process something, the things that can happen from the day to day, all of that plays a role in how you progress. And if something happens that takes you back a little bit, be patient with yourself, be understanding with yourself. You're doing the best that you can, and that's really what matters. Your therapist's job is to help you. They shouldn't make you feel bad for going backwards, for being at a standstill. They're not there to judge you. Their goal should be to help you, to be there for you, to help you move forward, to give you the tools to move forward. Something happens and it's something that you never experienced before potentially, and you don't know how to deal with it, and that's okay. You just need to be patient with yourself. It is okay. You are going to be okay. And I hope that this video was informative, but also a well-received video on your side, in your opinion. I hope that I provided you with some comfort. If you are in therapy, if you just started therapy, if you're thinking about therapy, I hope that I helped you in some way, in some positive way, to be okay with how your journey is going, to be more optimistic about your outcome. I just hope that I did something positive for your day at the very least. And I thank you so much for listening, for watching, for being here with me. Thank you for being here. I will stop talking now. I hope that you have an amazing day, an amazing week, an amazing month, an amazing year, and an amazing life. And I hope I will see you back next week.